Yeah.
Stardate 770. Engage.
Alright, so we left off, as you said, speaking about the Olam Katan. We said the real source of the Neshama is actually higher than the Torah, and clearly higher than the world. But the ray of the Neshama that comes into the Guf, which is a mixture of the Tachtonim and the Elyonim. The Tachtonim, because actually we could theoretically fall to the lowest places. It says that the creation of the body of man was different than the creation of the body of the animals. Why? Because the animals came out of the ground with their souls. Like, in other words, rabbits just started running out from the ground. They were created from the ground, right? They came out the earth, and they were already alive. Same as all the beasts. Whereas man, it wasn't like that. Hashem created us just from earth, the body, like a golem, and then He put the soul into us. So you see that even our soul, even our body, it didn't have the refinement of the body of the animals, because they were already born together with their soul. Whereas our bodies were just born strictly bodies, and then the soul had to be put in. So our bodies are actually lower than theirs, and our soul is higher than theirs. Why? Because our soul is actually not just stem from the Elyonim, from the angels, but even from higher than the angels, because that aspect of the Jewish soul, which is above all creation, it's a little bit of that comes inside of the body. So while it goes definitely in a contracted sense out of its original state, it still is higher than all other things in creation. So we have a mixture of the Elyon and the Tachtonim. Point being is that once you have the soul in the body, you already have something which is now governed by Torah. That the Torah becomes higher than the soul and higher than the world. And therefore, it's written into the Torah. Because anything which is in the Torah's, domain, the Torah can write about it and speak about it. The essence of the soul, which is above the Torah can't mention it. So that being said, we want to find out, since every single thing in man is hinted to in the Torah by definition of what we just said, because the world, Histakol v'raiso bara alma, Hashem looked into the Torah, made the world. He looked into the Torah, made the little world called man. Where in the Torah, therefore, is it hinted the separation and the nasira of our Yetzer Hara from our Yetzer Tov? Right? It said that v'yidaita hayom hashevosa levavecha. You shall know today the meaning of day and night. The idea that there's a Elokim and Havaya in everything, and also vashevosa levavecha, even in your heart, there's an Elokim and Havaya. The only way to sweeten the Gevoras inside of you is to first separate them. Where is all this indicated in man? That we have this idea of the separation inside of ourselves. Where is that indicated in the Torah? That's what we left off with yesterday, and then we also left off with the question, which is starting on page Pei Gimel, about 7 lines down. It says Hanasira B'Torah. The line starts with Hanasira B'Torah. You see that, Mendel?
Yeah.
Okay, so it says V'tzrich Iyun. Right? We have to. So where is the Nasira, the separation of hinted to in the Torah? Good to see you here. And he says Tzrich Iyun. Why are you asking this question? Why is he asking himself this question? HaKasiva Yikach Achas Mitzalosab. Doesn't it say the whole story of the Nasira right in the Torah? In other words, why are you asking me where in the Torah is the Nasira hinted to? The Nasira being the separation of dark and light in man. It says that man was separated from his wife, and it was he took from one of his ribs, in order to make the woman. And he says, "Ayin Perish Rashi." If you look in Perish Rashi, and also the Midrash Rabbah, the Dash Shmuel over there, the Midrash Rabbah, Perek Yud Zayin Neicha. In other words, it was not one of his ribs, but what was it? One of his sides, right? That the separation of man was that he was pushed two people, that they were separated into two entities. So isn't that the Nasira? So why is the Rabbi Rishab asking where's the hint of the Nasira in the Torah? Isn't that pretty much the Nasira itself? And he says it's just not. In other words, that what we're going to see, there's another pasuk he's going to find out to indicate that there's such a thing called the separation and the Nasira inside of man, and it doesn't come from this sort of obvious pasuk. He doesn't really explain why, but once we see what the Nasira actually is, we will understand why that's not a good source for it. So let me just stop here because I feel like I'm losing you guys. You understand what I'm saying? The question, the answer, what are we talking about? We just woke up out of bed and there's no seichel yet in the room, including me. Chaim.
Chaim.
No, you understand what I'm asking here?
You said the we would have thought that the Nasira was from Adam and Chava,
Right.
But there's another source for that.
Exactly. And the whole point is that we're looking for a source for Nasira in the Torah, because since man comes from the Torah, for sure it's hinted to in everything which is in the world is in the Torah. Let's find it so we can accomplish it. Because you don't
was Nasir of Adam and Chava?
He doesn't explain. He basically it's not sufficient of a mushal to indicate how the Nasira really works, which is actually kind of shocking. And he says
Adam and Chava was the classic
exactly
mushal till now.
Right.
But maybe they mean this actual action of God taking, maybe like that wasn't the Nasira. The Nasira happened later with Adam and Chava. Not that that's not sufficient, but that wasn't Nasira. Because maybe
it could be that it could be like this. It could be that is the Nasira. The man was actually separated, but that's not the place in the Torah which accurately describes. In other words, that's almost like in creation, that was a Nasira, a removal of man and woman. But the source in Torah, you with me, comes from a different pasuk. You see what I'm saying? In other words,
that was the action. That was it happening in the story of events.
Yes, but it wasn't the actual place in the Torah where that story of events was derived from.
I mean, it kind of sounds like V'yishlam and Vikach in Nasira. This taking, that wasn't the aspect of Nasira that we're trying to refer to.
Exactly.
It happened elsewhere. Maybe actually God did that. Then they were created, and they were created back to back. As in, it's later. This wasn't Nasira. Nasira only happened later. Yeah, Taka, that's how God made her.
I think, though, we can't go too far away from the fact that this is classically called the Nasira, right?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, for sure. This is the Nasira.
Oh, okay.
Right, but the point is that why is he not using that as a mashal in Torah, or the remez in Torah, where the Nasira comes from? Because the actual source in Torah, let's say of a Nasira, it comes from a different pasuk, as we'll see. But this was an example in the world of a Nasira. I guess you could put maybe like that. I don't know. He says this whole thing tzrichiyu, and like he himself is asking this question, he seems to be confused by it. But let's not confuse ourselves with it anymore. What mean?
That he asks a question on that.
He says, let's go find a source for Torah of the Nasira. And then Rabbi Rashab. And then he says the little parentheses, and I'm about to bring you one, right? And it needs to be looked into. He says tzrichiyu, and he leaves it as a tzrichiyu, and like this requires further clarification, because why aren't we using the mashal of the Nasira as an example of the Nasira in Torah? And then he just says, well, because that's not the union of the Nasira. Let's move on. So he doesn't. I'm just trying to come up with what that might mean, which is that, as I said, it could be that was a case in the world of Nasira, but in the verses of the Torah, there's a better verse which describes the Nasira. Let's look at that verse. Okay. Acha inyan hu. So the matter is as follows. Alpi mashik omrim b'Gemara. Achas ma'amidos shedorshim behem es haTorah. There's one of the midos that you darshan the Torah with. Right, so there's classically 13 midos that we read every day before davening, but there's different girsas of how many midos there are, and there's other ways of gleaning information out of the Torah besides the classic ones that are found in their Kal V'chomer, Gezerah Shava. You know what I'm talking about? So there's other lists, and he says one of the lists, the ways that you can take the you can darshan from the Torah. There's permissible ways of interpreting the Torah according to the Torah's own rules. And it's called Gorin Mosifim V'Dorshi. It's called subtracting, adding, and then investigating. It's like a midah that the Torah we can apply to the Torah to gain information from it. Subtracting, adding, and investigating. And a usage of this is comes from this verse now. Right? So it says, a pasuk says, you take from the blood of the ox. Okay, whatever it's talking about over there, you sprinkle it on the altar. But from here, we're going to apply the midah of gorin, mosifim, v'dorshi. We're subtracting, adding, and investigating. So the pasuk is v'lakach midam apar v'amar azal in Zvachim daf chav hey amar aleph dam me'apar yikablenu. Right? He says like this: dam me'apar yikablenu. Blood from the ox you should receive into your, when you shech it, you should receive the blood from the ox. Shenishpach adam al ritzpah v'asu pasul, which means to teach you what? What is the pasuk trying to teach you? It takes a second to figure this out, by the way. We'll get it. He says, blood from the ox you will receive in your bowl, meaning to say that if it falls on the floor and you gather it from the floor, it's pasul. So it's trying to tell you the law that when you shech the animal, the blood has to go right into your vessel, right? And it cannot fall on the floor, then you pick it up and use it. V'ratza lomer, and what's going on here? It's coming to teach you, shegorim hamem mitevas midam mosifin al tevas hapar. It's coming to tell you that you subtract the mem from the word, quote, midam, from blood, and you add that mem onto the word hapar. So it's called subtracting and adding. It's pashut like a device that you're allowed to use in the Torah, which enables you to play with the pesukim, like legally. And let's look at the pasuk again. It says, "V'lakach midam hapar." He took from the blood of the ox. What are we doing? We're subtracting the mem from the word midam. We're adding it to the word hapar, and we're going to learn something. And dorshim, we're going to investigate. We're going to learn something out of it. So v'lakach, what would you do? How would it read if you actually did that? Levi, how would it read?
Separate and take Adam.
It would read like this: V'lakach dam mihapar. Instead of reading V'lakach midam hapar, you should take from the blood of the ox. You read it as you take blood from the ox, because you took the mem from the word midam and you put it on the word hapar. So it says V'lakach dam mihapar. You understand that?
Yeah.
And what does that mean? It means a whole different thing. Now it means it doesn't just take blood from the ox. It says you should take blood specifically from the ox and not from the floor. So this is just an example of the rule, Gorim Mosifin Udorshim. Okay. And he says, Vehine Zehu Dimyon HaNasira. This is a pasuk which describes the Indian of the Nasira. Whole different deal over here. Taking from one, putting on the other, and getting something new out of it. And that's why he says, like, the Indian of the regular Nasira is not the Indian of the Nasira. It's like it's a process that works exactly like this.
So that's the passage?
Hang on 1 second, yeah?
So then it's also working for others. Wherever you have me something,
Whenever you have me,
like in the Torah, wherever you have like sentence with pasuk with me something,
I think say the
it
idea.
means that you
it's not
can do
necessary.
that thing.
No, I don't think so. I doubt that very much. It's probably more like the Indian of a Gezerah Shava. Gezerah Shava means if it says the word, whatever it is, truma over here, and it says the word truma over here, you can learn the words from this discussion, and you can make like a bridge and apply them to this discussion. So you can learn the halachas regarding, let's say, meiser about truma, because the word truma is in both places. Let's just say I'm just kind of throwing a random non-example out there, right?
Yeah.
But you can't just say every time it says the word, Adam in the Torah, so every other place it says Adam, I'm going to transfer the halachas. You can't do that. There's a set of defined places that these bridge already exist, given by God. The sages told us about them. They're like, by tradition we know these are the Gezerah Shavas. There's not more, there's not less. And it's probably the same thing over here. You can't just like apply the rules the way you want them, but if you know where one is, you can apply laws like this.
Yeah.
You gotta be a super rabbi to do it.
You gotta be super rabbi. Go ahead. You wanted to ask a question?
Yeah. So the Rabbi Rashab is saying that's the pasuk where we learn out the separation?
Yeah, the concept that we're talking about of making a Nasira and separating the Gevuras from the Chesed, or the Elokim from the Havaya, or the teacher from the student, all that, and then sweetening it. And we said everything has to be hinted to in Torah. This is the place in Torah where it's hinted
Now I
to.
see your answer more. Like you see the actual action of Nasira being done. Like the concept of Nasira is very clear over here.
Here it's very clear. You take from one
Versus
place, you
like,
add it to
that
another
was
place,
the story.
and it gives you a new
Where's the
drasha.
This is the pasuk?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's about this pasuk as much as about this principle. There's probably other psukim that this principle applies to, but this is the basic principle that describes the Nasira. The principle is that you remove and subtract from one word, umosifin al teva acheres, and then you add it onto another word. And so it is the Nasira ba'Adam Arishon. In other words, this is really, you don't see it so much, but this is the concept of the Nasira and Adam Arishon. You don't learn it from that pasuk, but that's essentially what happened to him. That's kind of going back to my theory over there, is that you can still say Adam Arishon is the Indian of the Nasira. It's just that's not like the principle in Torah that you actually learn it from. That's like the demonstration in the world of having it done. But it's not the place in Torah that you learn it from. But this is exactly what happened to Adam Arishon. Something was removed from him, added to something else, and then a new drasha came out. So this now phrase, you subtract, you add, you darshan. Romez ala adam atachton. It's hinting to the lower man. Uma gam imhu bal tshuva, particularly if he's a bal tshuva. You know, this is already going to become a vodadik for a change for the first 80 pages. V'yadua dachas midos habal tshuva hushinu hamaisa. And it's known, how do we apply this to ourselves, to a bal tshuva? One of the main things that a bal tshuva has to do is change his deeds, right? She's shana ma'asav v'drachav. You can't pretend to be a bal tshuva and you're stuck in the same exact patterns that you were before. You actually have to have charata and remove your will from the thing and act differently. Otherwise, you're not a bal tshuva. You're just thinking about being one. Shezeh inyan azivas hachet b'poel. It's called abandoning the sin in actuality. And the idea of the change is that you have to really totally go to the other extreme. In other words, the idea of akiras haratzon, which means uprooting your will. It's like, let's say a person's a smoker, you know, he has this tremendous desire to smoke all the time. To uproot your will means you like pull your will out of that thing to the point that it like disgusts you. That's the Indian of like a real bal tshuva. He doesn't have an interest in that. He doesn't just change his actions. He changes like his whole, you know, thrust of being in this place where he's like read about it and he's been, you know, he went to, not called brainwashing, but they
make you like
what's it called again?
Hypnotized.
He got hypnotized, and he now is convinced that this is like a foul thing. It looks like an ashtray. His mouth tastes like an ashtray. He doesn't want it. He's disgusted by it. He uproots himself and abandons the sin, so to speak. This is the idea of a bal tshuva. Which means the manner of the change is to the furthest extreme. And he separates himself thoroughly from all those things that he was involved to up until now. As it says, "V'lech lecha amrina l'nazira." Right? We say to the nazir, "Lech lecha," like go out of yourself entirely. Like you're a drinker of wine. Now you've like removed yourself. Nazir actually means to separate, to remove yourself. You completely remove yourself from your previous state. V'zeh inin gorin, and that's what it means. You subtract. Moshe, I got you excited for a cigarette there. Sorry. That's what it means. Subtract. Shetzrich ligroa lisrachik biyoser ma'asav hakodmin. That you need to subtract, distance yourself at a great extreme from your previous activities. That's what it means subtract. You have to take away something from yourself. Whatever interest you were in, you have to subtract it from your life. Remove it. You have to conduct yourself in a completely opposite way that you originally did. But now, you don't just, this is called Ze Inyan HaMosifi, right? You now have to, it's not just subtracting. Because if you just try and like sur meira, turn from evil, you're not going to really be able to hold that up. Because you have to also va'aseh tov, you have to basically put yourself into a state. You're not just stop smoking, you're going to be like an exerciser and a special diet, and you're going to be joining all kinds of, you know, new groups of friends who think that smoking is disgusting, and you're going to add on to the other side in a way where it's only going to increase the other kav of avoda in your life. So you're subtracting from one, you're adding to the other. You can't just subtract from one. That's not really doing full tshuva. If you don't sort of put all that energy that you were putting into the negative thing and now add it into the positive thing, you're not distancing yourself entirely from the other side. And let's go back and visit what we said before about the idea that everything's mixed with good and evil, which is really the whole conversation here, was separating the mixture of good and evil. We said that even a tzaddik she'eino gomer, let's take the most extreme example, he still has inside of him some shemetz minehu, some tiny shred of an evil midah inside, even though it's batul and doesn't actually rise up and make him do anything. And how does it express itself? He doesn't hate evil thoroughly, because he has one small percentage of negative midos in there. It means he has a place in his heart somewhere for evil. And even he needs to do the nasira and separate. So what does it mean? You have to pull. What's the definition of not being a perfect tzaddik? Because you don't hate evil enough. Which means you have to remove yourself from that and throw yourself in thoroughly into loving God in a way that even this tzaddik had not up until now. So it's not enough to just pull out of the negative behavior, because you can still have a place for it in your heart. You see, that's what I was getting to. Even a tzaddik gomer who has no negative behavior, he still has some place for it in his heart. So just removing is not enough. You have to throw yourself in and add on the side of good. So that's what we're saying, like a real Baal Tshuva, it's a dual process, subtracting and adding. Dahainu?
Is that like a process we have to follow? We have to subtract, add, and then darshan?
Yes.
But then why the thing with the power is the best example?
Because you
Or
take
like
you take the mem, you remove it from one word, you add it onto another word. You'll just remove it.
How else you can understand it?
How else can you understand what?
That you don't need to like. That it can go somewhere else. Or,
Because there's other things that you just say, like al tikra zeh el zeh. There's other formats in the Torah of darshaning out things that you don't necessarily take something from one word and add it to another word. Sometimes maybe you just take out something from a word, like al tikra ma elameya. It's a perfect example, right? Al tikra ma elameya. Don't read the word as ma Hashem Elokecha shoel mi'imach, but meya Hashem Elokecha shoel mi'imach. Not what is Hashem asking you, but 100 blessings a day Hashem is asking you. What did you do there? It's a perfectly legal Torah move. You didn't subtract anything. You just added something. You know what I'm saying? Or there could be a situation where you just subtract and you don't add.
Yeah.
Here the idea is you specifically subtract and add, because that's really called the Nasira. Because otherwise you're not really removing yourself thoroughly from, you're not separating the two things properly. If you still have a little place in your heart for the sin, it's not a full removal. And so long as you're only removing and not adding, it shows that you're not taking that energy and putting it in the right place. You're not making a proper separation. You see? So, things that you were distanced from them before, things that you were before distanced from, like healthy jogs, let's say, you were like, dude, give me the coffee and cigarettes. And now you did tshuva. But I'm just using these examples because they're not really such big sins. I don't want to, put anybody on the spot. But whatever, it's not such a good thing either. But anyway, so things that you were distanced from, you weren't a big jogger and a health nut. Now you're added in, and like you're the most jogger. You're the biggest health nut. Because if you took the energy out of the bad place, you're also adding it into the good place. You've made a full separation. The ikar tshuva yosef b'kol tainisim v'sigufi, and as it's known that this is the main inyan of tshuva, more than like feeling depressed and fasting and mortifying your goof and so forth. This is the main inyan of tshuva, is that you become a new mensch. Sigufim is mortification, like torturing yourself, basically, rolling around in the snow.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So that's all about removing, right? Like punishing yourself for being bad. It's saying that's not the real inyan of tshuva. Real inyan of tshuva is being different. So you have to take all that energy and put it and add it to the next place. This is what it means that you subtract, you add, and then you darish. Which means the Baal Tshuva has to see in his deeds that he has the proper Nasira. He has to see to it that he subtracts from all physical and worldly matters and physical desires, umosros, and extras in his life. In other words, if he's not mamish required for avodas Hashem, it's just extra. He doesn't need it, right? Like they used to say that when they came to Liozna to see the Alter Rebbe, they would make them wait to have Yechidus for 7 years, all the time meditating on one idea, which is that which is prohibited is prohibited, and that which is permissible is unnecessary, right?
Das was Tormen.
Yeah. Right. So this is the idea that anything that's permissible, I can. You don't need it. So that's because like all you need is the absolute minimum to serve God. That's what you're. So any place in your life where you're sort of enjoying what you don't need, this is your love for your animal soul, and
that's how we have lived. That's our avodah, going extra in this world and doing stuff. I don't know. Like we should be so minimally tuned to this world.
not to immediately, yes, to the worldliness of the world, yes, but to the not to say that we're going to sit on a mountaintop and leave the world behind. You can be the most active person in the world, but what are you taking from the world? You sit down to eat. What are you taking from this? Am I taking just the nourishment out of this meal, or am I taking the geschmack of the potatoes out of this meal? So once you're into the geschmack of potatoes, you've temporarily forgotten what you're doing here. In other words, that your soul came to this world to make a dir b'taktonim. So it's hard, and that's why alavai rasha v'tovlo, But nonetheless, this is reality. Like, face it. And that's why people who think they're big shots have a look that you're basically alavai beinani. Tanya puts everybody in perspective of their real spiritual state before we get excited about how great we are. But nonetheless, this is what it means. Like, we can't also totally ignore the truth, which is that if you're going for extras, if you're in it for yourself in any way, at that moment, you're not doing true avodas Hashem. And that's what we said even before, that even the Rasha B'Tovlo, who's doing a mitzvah mamish, and the moment he's doing a mitzvah, the mitzvah is not complete most of the time. Because there's aspects of himself which are still doing it for himself. It doesn't mean that it's not a good place to start. But I'm just saying that's why he brought that everything's mixed with good and bad. Even a tzaddik sheino gomer is already mixed in a little bit good and bad. So this idea is like, okay, it seems impossible, but not really. Like, if you actually sit down and try to operate this in your next meal, you could. Like, it's almost right there before you. Nothing's stopping you. You just don't want to. Because you like the geschmack of the potatoes. But if you want to, this is what it means to be a Baal Tshuva. To remove yourself from your selfishness. But that's not enough. If you just go on a diet, you're not going to get anywhere. If you don't replace that energy with my interest, I'm going to sit and learn in Zal for 24 hours. So you're adding all that energy to the positive. Then he says, no, you don't just sit there and fast and mortify yourself. That's not the point of a Baal Tshuva. The point is that so long as your energy is taken by the geschmack potatoes, there's no way it's going to be in the Zal. It just doesn't, you can't put it in both places. So to remove it and add it.
But the question, if everybody adds, if you add something that you didn't do before,
say that
the same rule, or it has to be something that you actually have before. You know what I mean?
Nope. Say it again.
And if you add something that you didn't have before,
add something that you didn't have before.
To the other side. If it's actually
it's also
working.
Good. No, 100%. Like, this guy was not a jogger. And now he's the greatest jogger in the world. You could add something that you didn't have before.
Yeah.
For sure. The point is, you're adding life force to the side of good. Doesn't matter if it's something you already practiced or something new practiced. So, this is what it means. That the Baal Tshuva, he has to see to it that he removes from Olam Hazeh the Gashmis of this world and the extras, as we said. V'kol shar tzarchi hareshus, and all just permissible matters that he could go with and he doesn't have to go with. He's got to get rid of them. Rak yaspik atzmo bichdei hahechri. He should suffice himself with just what is absolutely necessary, the kiyum nafsho briusa, for his soul to stay alive and be healthy. That's what you need, and not a penny more. In other words, you might still need to be a billionaire because you've got to now erect, an empire of the Rabbi in the world. It doesn't mean that you're distant from Gashmias.
Amen.
It means you're not mixed in with the Gashmias for its own sake. V'ayin mashkasuv b'sharei tshuva la Rabbi Yonah. It's this famous sefer that was written. Actually, it's the hallmark of tshuva because when the Rambam wrote his works, he came out fiercely against them and even burned them. And then he realized, whoa, maybe
the Rambam?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe the Rambam actually knew what he was talking about. So later he realized how horrible of a thing that he did, and he wrote literally the book on tshuva. And what does he say? That the main thing about Baal Tshuva has to do is break his taivas. That anything that he wants and desires. This is heavy stuff. I told you we're going into like Rabbi Gornstein land over here. Anything that he wants. Even if they're totally permissible things, like there's nothing wrong with this. Forget smoking, that's already like on the edge of it's dangerous, it's unhealthy. Even mamish, just going out for whatever with his friends, it's totally permissible. Anything that he desires, he should separate himself from it. In other words, because the taiva is sort of like on his personal level. Because that taiva is dragging him into some realm of self, which is going to drag his soul into evil, and he's going to wind up transgressing the will of God. Because what does it mean? Like he's busy with his own matters. So once you're busy with your own matters, if the matters of the king should come up, then you're like, well, I'm really kind of having fun with my own matters, so I'll get back to you later, king. Right? So all that starts that you even have that problem because you're schlepped into your own desires. So the first thing a person has to do is be in a state where you're continuously vigilant, watching that you're not so shaykh to your own desires. You're not lusting after your own, even if they're totally permissible things. It doesn't have to be that these are dangerous. It's just like overeating or just like, sleeping, resting, things that just you're drawn to. You should make it your business to not be drawn to them. Because as soon as you're sort of just comfortable in things that you're drawn to for their own sake, it's going to wind up making you transgress the will of Hashem one day or another because you're sort of busy doing what you want to do. When you return to Hashem, so when you do actually do tshuva, you have to break that original cause which made you in the beginning be distant from Hashem. And that was whatever taiva you were involved with. In other words, to break it. Vashvira hiadea prisha b'pol mamish. And how do you break it? Like, what do I do? Is this like some meditation I have to go on? No. It's actually not a meditation. It's a literal pulling yourself away in actual fact. You like to sleep in? Guess what? You don't sleep in. That's it. It's like it doesn't take chokhmas. That's why we say, like, at a certain level, the simplest Jew has access to the greatest divine service as the greatest Jew. Because at the end of the day, the most precious thing is just doing the right thing. So you don't have to be a genius to get out of bed on time and break your taiva to sleep in. You just have to do it. Once you do it, b'poel mamish, you broke it. Like you performed like the most intense divine service that you can. You pulled yourself out of that taiva b'poel mamish. And he says, like, the idea is that when you break the taiva, you actually, in other words, at that moment when you get out of bed early, you do something very deep psychologically that you actually don't have that taiva as much anymore. Because he says, just like when you do use your natural animal tendencies, they get stronger. Right? So too, when you don't use them, they get weaker. Darech must be marav. In other words, there's the concept of basically, like a person, like the great desire that most people, like young men have, don't have to mention it, it's like spilling seed and all these kinds of things. So it says in halacha, that limb, the more you feed it, the hungrier it gets. Right? And this is, Rabbi says in Chassidus, we don't talk about this too much because it's like, it's basic avodas Hashem. We should be beyond that. But we are with young men over here, and the idea is that the more you feed it, the stronger it gets. If you starve it, you won't want it anymore. It's and it's like that in all taivas. Like it looks like I'm schlepped into this, and I can't get myself out of it. I'm like an addict in whatever area I'm in. The truth is, the more you get addicted, the stronger your addiction gets. In other words, the more you feed your addiction, the stronger your addiction gets. But conversely, that seems like a monster. How do I deal with that? Because the more you break your addiction, your practice of the addiction, the weaker your actual need for it gets. If you starve it, it gets weaker. So knowing this is powerful. You can do anything. You just have to do it. B'poel mamish, just remove yourself from it. And it's either way. It works both ways. By not doing something, you break the taiva, the natural taiva for that thing. You just break it. Just like this is the deal with a Baal Tshuva. This is the truth that every man has this issue, this problem, or this process, going on. So why is he saying a Baal Tshuva? Because the Baal Tshuva is like the extreme version. The Baal Tshuva is the guy who has sin. He's mamish doing the wrong thing on like a regular basis, and we're saying he's to break himself away and add on to the other thing. But even if you're not a big sinner, you're just trying to serve God. He says the same thing is true for every man. That you need to remove yourself from your taivas of your natural soul, or your natural taivas. That's the idea of you have to forget your people in your father's house, like lech lecha mi'artzecha mimoladetecha. You have to go out of your regilus, of your regular behaviors and attitudes. Hainu yitziyam regilus hakodemis, your previous attitude. Shezeu haschalas ha'avoda, and this is the beginning of the avoda, which everyone here basically did in order to come to this room. You know, you were hanging out with girls, you were at the party, you weren't a bad kid, you were doing your homework in high school, whatever it was. But like, in other words, you had a custom from your father's house to act in a certain way. And if you want to start walking in the ways of Hashem, you have to remove yourself from those accustomed worldly behaviors. It just doesn't go together. And that's the beginning of all avoda. Lasir chumrias v'gasus hara, to remove the coarse, thick evil that's upon you. Chasidim hakodmim hayu sha'asu heskem menashim. They were the original Chasidim that used to sort of make like a deal with them, their souls. They would make a strong, firm commitment inside of their souls. Shekol davra mutter, like we mentioned before about the Alter Rebbe's Chasidim, anything that's permissible. Ach sheyesh lo ezer ratzu v'chemdas halev lezeh lo yasezos. But this was the original Chasidim. This is like real men, right? In the old days, that anything that was in front of them, even if they had a slight desire for it, right? In other words, a coffee. What's wrong with it? You get up in the morning, you have a coffee. So long as they felt inside of themselves, it's good. Today there was no tea. I'm just drinking water. Even this I have a tie before, right? But you have some. In other words, I don't need it. I could be perfectly fine. Do my exact avoda in life without it. It's totally a permissible thing. It's just an apple on the table. These great men, when they felt in themselves any slight taiva for it, they would already hold back. Tema. Just waking you up there.
Taiva is something that you have no reason for, right?
Basically,
you can't reason. Like if you can reason it, so it means
you know, there's
like
a famous story of Shmuel Munkis. It's like one of the great stories of Shmuel Munkis. He has a lot of them, but he was basically sitting with Hasidim, and everybody really wanted. They were waiting for the kishka to come out of the kitchen, right? So everyone's like demanding this kitchen. Where it's so late. So finally, the cook comes out with it. And Shmuel Munkis is like this joker, right? That was sort of his role in the court of the Alter Rebbe. He was like the jester. So he jumps up on the table and grabs the kishka from the hands of the cook and starts like dancing with it, and everyone's like, "What are you doing?" You know, it's like Shabbos chalent. You know, everyone was like waiting for a mamish, and he's dancing, and he trips and he goes out the window. And basically everyone's like looking at him like they're gonna kill it. You know, like the Chasidim, like, you know, Chassidus is Chassidus, but like you threw the kishka out the window and we're gonna kill you. And so all of a sudden they're like mamash going, and you know those guys, the Russian, you know, had a few bottles, you know, they were like ready to like beat him up. It wasn't a joke. And so they're like at his neck, and all of a sudden the cook comes running in and says, "Stop! It was treif." The butcher switched it with the Goyish butcher. It was treif. And they all look at the cook and they look at him, and then they're like, "Now we're really going to beat you up." Why? He says, "Because do you have like Ruach HaKodesh and you're hiding it from us?" So he says, "Chevra, I don't have Ruach HaKodesh. Stop." He says, "It's just that when I saw how much you guys wanted this thing, I knew there must be something wrong with it."
Was it 770?
No, this is Shmuel Munkis in the Alter Rebbe's times. In other words, that's the point we're making here. Because everyone's beating themselves up in the shul. He says, you understand? In other words, he doesn't have Ruach HaKodesh. He just saw that if they wanted it that much, something it's coming from the other side. And here we're saying, like in a certain sense, that even the great Chassidim of old, even if they wanted an apple, they felt like, I'm going to dig my teeth into that baby. You know, even there, totally permissible, nothing wrong with this. It's like in the realm of total kosher. They would say, wait a second, I'm not here to want things for myself, I'm breaking my taivas. You know, so they would, in other words, their Indian was not, I'm going to fast today. That's a very big distinction between, like, sort of Musar and Chassidus. They weren't looking to mortify themselves and to fast and be like austere in this thing. They weren't doing that, because that's like its own avoda, just like breaking yourself. They were just making sure that they weren't diving into things that they really didn't totally need. So it looks to the outside world like they're fasting, because a guy like that probably won't eat very much. But it's not like he's going to get up in the morning and say, "I'm not going to eat very much today. I'm on a diet." That's not what he's doing. He's just really checking with himself every time something comes up, if he really needs it or not. And the truth is, if we actually did that, we wouldn't hardly eat. You know, because how much do you really need already? You just need enough to make sure you can have energy to do what you need to do. The whole feeding process is crazy, out of control, basically. But okay, we're not Hasidim of old. We are going to apply this in much more gross areas of life. Don't come to class stoned and drunk. Let's try that one, right? Before you get into not eating your apple. Let's just realize where we're holding here for a second. But that being said, let's apply that. Okay. So anyway, moving right along. When you do this, when you apply this, you actually break the taiva. You don't want to come stoned and drunk anymore because you're holding back. You starve it, it's not hungry anymore. And that's the beauty of it. By breaking it, you actually fix it. Right? There's it's a beautiful little phrase that he's getting to. There's the idea that shvirasan takanasan is like a law in Tuma, let's say. Certain things, let's say, for example, a kli cheres, which is a porcelain object, you can't put it in a mikveh and make it become pure. If it's metal, how do you fix it? You can toivel it. But if it's cheres, how do you fix it? You break it. Right? So that lashon of the halacha he's using here in avoda. He's saying the only way to fix your taivas is to break them. And it's not a destructive act. It's an act of purification to break them. That's what I'm saying. It's not fasting. You're not fasting. You're actually fixing your taivas by breaking them. Because now you don't have those taivas anymore. That's what it means subtract. The grom is pashtus and nefesh bahamis. In other words, you're subtracting from the expansion of your animal soul. If your animal soul really would let itself loose, you would be yimach shemam like the Nazis, right? You'd be like a dictator. You'd be Stalin, right? If you let the nefesh, and even maybe not a Yiddish nefesh bahamis, but probably even if you really just you took away all guilt. And all your Jewish mother, you took all the picture and you forgot your heritage and who you are, your children of Abraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, and we have certain good midos that we inherited. But if you would just let your nefesh of Bahamas go mamish wild, you'd be like Esav. You'd be killing people and raping people because ultimately your nefesh of Bahamas just wants everything for itself. We have enough civil. It says Alavai that your Yira Shemayim should be close to your Yira of Basar V'Dam, right? Like Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai told to his students that Alavai, you should just fear God as much as you fear people, because we have a certain embarrassment. I'm not going to go rape a person because I'm going to be embarrassed to let my animal soul be such a crazy person. So there's something holding back your animal soul, but it's not your animal soul itself. Your animal soul would go crazy and take over the whole world and murder the entire world for its own desires, left to its own devices. It's king of the jungle. So he's saying that basically, okay, I'm sorry I brought such an extreme example, but the idea is that's what it means to subtract. Your natural direction of your animal soul is to expand. And you are going to subtract. That's the beginning of avoda. Subtract the extension of the animal soul. How do you do it? That's good news here. You have power to do that. Right? This is the one good news that Hashem would not ask us to do something you cannot accomplish. You can basically do anything. You have a certain koach from the Eibishter that anything you don't want to do, you are not forced to do. Your soul has kochos to overcome any obstacle so long as you just try. God made it in such a way that Hashem is standing. If you just put the Nefesh Elokis next to the Nefesh Bahamis, actually, the Nefesh Elokis would actually lose. Implicitly, it's weaker than the Nefesh Bahamis. But it says that Hashem helps him. He stands on his right side and he's waiting. As soon as the Nefesh Elokis decides, I'm going to do the right thing, he has the power of God behind him. And this is a koach that a Yid is given in order to, that's what it says, mashbinoso, that we're made to take an oath, i.e. the word oath also comes to the word soveo, which means to be satiated. When we take an oath to come down to this world to be a tzaddik, before we're born, we are therefore satiated with powers in order to become a tzaddik. Because anytime you're going to make a decision to do the right thing, you will be granted the power to do it if you just step up to the plate. And that's called the koach hagabara of the nefesh, the power of the godly soul to overcome the nefesh Bahamas if it wants to. Gambi yosef batikva guraso, even though the nefesh Bahamas is in its full strength. In other words, you are mamish a monster in your behaviors. You're a full-on drug addict, heroin addict. You don't care about a person in the world. You're a thief. Even if you're a yid, and you just have like mamash a moment of tshuva and you decide no thick course of addiction can stop you from doing tshuva. This is why like AA, is all about believing in God, basically, right? Because you need a godly power to do that, and you have one. Shemushrash and you're you're rooted and you're sunken. Rahman al-Itzlan into these midos raos, into these evil midos. Makom yesh koach v'tok v'nefesh l'kis disgaver alav. You can get out. Yeah, maybe.
I was going to say AA illustrates the whole thing. You're subtracting first, right? You're going in, so you're having no alcohol at all.
Right.
And then you're adding. You're going to meetings. You're taking on these new midos. These
we have over here a friend of ours, right, that traced the whole source of the AA mamash from to the Rebbe Rashab. I think that's where, right? Literally, like the guy got the information from the Rebbe Rashab. Like if you trace Carl Jung, right, started it. It's
really?
No.
Rabbi Yonah also, maybe.
Rabbi Yonah was no, but I'm saying the actual historical writings of the AA literature. Where they got their ideas from, it literally was sourced from the Rebbe Rashab. That's what, anyway, Itai brings to the table. Like they learned it from the Rebbe Rashab. Chassidus, it's not surprising. Chassidus brought a lot of good things into the world. Okay, so anyway, you have the koach to overcome. Oh, look at that. So I guess I read this before. This is the Indian of Mashbin also. That's what it means, that you swear, i.e. you are endowed, right? Because the word swearing is the same word as satiated. So when you swear, and just stop, when you swear about something, it gives you a certain power. I swear I'm not going to do it. Like, whoa, you swear? So like you're emboldened all of a sudden with this oath. And that's why the word oath also means to satiate you with powers. Because an actual oath does that to you automatically. Lishlot al ruach taiva. So in order to overcome and dominate the spirit of your taiva, bli shum tainu mana. You don't have to have any reasons for it, right? You don't have to convince the Yetzer Hara. This power of overcoming is so strong that it just uproots the will. Just do what you want. You don't have to get into a conversation about it. You realize that it's the wrong thing. I'm not doing it anymore. You're empowered. Lifrosh mem bepol mam, to actually separate from them in actual deed. And by doing this, you will actually break your thick, coarse nefesh Bahamas. Like we said, the breaking of it is the fixing of it. By denying it, it gets healthier. Alright, so we'll hold here. That's called subtracting. Tomorrow we'll get into adding. Koyach. A little avoda. Start with avoda a little bit.